Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the LitRPG podcast. I am Ramon Mejia. I'm here to bring you the latest LitRPG news, reviews, and of course author interviews. And this week I have quite a gem for you folks. Or is it Dungeon Core? I can't remember. I'm talking to the infamous, my buddy, my friend, Dakota Krout. He's the author of the Divine Dungeon series, and he's here to talk about his novel, The Ritualist, the Completest Chronicles of Book 1, which will be out on March the 15th, right, coming up. So hey, say hi, Dakota.
Hey everyone, how's it going? And there's a live chat going on right now, right? So they can just hop on in with questions if they have some.
They can totally leave comments on the live chat we're doing. We'll revamp this afterwards, to add some music and sound at the end to put it for the actual podcast. But this is live. It's on YouTube. We have links on our Facebook page for people who want to join in on the chat, just to come by and say hi and please join. We need questions. This is slightly impromptu. As far as these things go, but I'm always happy to do it. Dakota is always super fun to talk to, so it's great to have you on, man.
And it's always super fun to talk to you, Ramon. Never had a bad conversation.
Yeah, awesome. So thank you very much. It's always pretty fun. You and I have chatted off air plenty of times. I think we're kind of buddies at this point. At least I hope so.
I hope so too. I'm over here I'm going to talk to my buddy Ramon. So
yeah.
Don't even have to ask that, man.
Good, because it's always I always wonder when I talk to people where they're are we real friends or just friends in my head, because I talk to you about something that I love so much, and it's always nice to know. Oh yeah, we're buddies.
I would invite you to come and stay here for a while, but it is still below freezing, and we expect it to be that way for almost another 2 months. So
I will enjoy the 70-degree weather I have here. You can always come hang out at my house, man. It's totally cool. We have a spare room. We have a spare room. You and everybody else can hang out there. It's a big queen size bed in there too.
There we go.
We even have cribs and stuff because we babysit a lot. So
perfect.
For everybody, man. But going back to the topic of The Ritualist, this is actually a very interesting novel, but it's also a departure from what you've written previously.
Sure.
The last series you wrote was a dungeon master or a dungeon core novel, and so it focused essentially on that particular concept, a core creating a dungeon, adventurers coming in, being killed, and there were also some concepts of the town outside of the dungeon being a part of the story. So with The Ritualist, how is that different from that particular series?
Sure. So The Ritualist is going to be a little bit more traditional lit RPG. So in this, because my thing is I don't want to be penned into a single type of story. I love writing the Divine Dungeon series, and it will be continuing. The third one was not the end, but at the same time, I would like to have a place where if people get to the end of what I have written, they can say, "Oh, okay, I really liked his work. I would like to pop over and see something else." And so with The Ritualist, it's a person who is in a game now. So we're now in modern times, instead of with the Divine Dungeon, which is, either alternate dimension or very, very far back in the past, medieval sort of style. With The Ritualist, it is a guy who is playing a character. And they are in long-term pods, so it's not there's not a lot of perspective change. This one focuses entirely on the main character's perspective throughout the whole book. His trials, tribulations, how he levels up, what he does to gain skills, so he is. It's a very interesting concept. I think I'm the first one to hit this type of character, so I'm excited.
No, I don't disagree with you in the character class that you chose, which is the Ritualist technically, and then the Occultist is his profession eventually. Do you want to tell us a little bit about those particular traits, or you want to keep those for the readers?
No, that's totally fine. So like you said, there is a big difference between the class and the profession. So the class is just like any other game. You can find hidden classes, you can find unique classes, and he does get a unique class right off the bat, doing something that no one else has done, because you'll find out he has a lot more free time than other people. So the Ritualist is an interesting class in that it is essentially entirely utility. So it is whereas a lot of other people focus on becoming very big, powerful characters, either through brawn, intelligence, huge magical bolts. The main character, whose name is Joe in the book, I know. Well, so Joe is basically the ultimate utility. So everything from, you know, camping to survival stuff to cleaning. It's all based on what he does. And later on, as he gets more specialized in his class, he's going to be able to do more powerful things, more attack-based things. But what he does is on a grand scale compared to like that.
Okay, now I think you're underselling this particular class, in my opinion, because Joe is really cool. I love the name that you chose, like Joe. Like, he's your average Joe, and that's how he kind of comes off at the beginning of the story. Because in the beginning, this is not a huge spoiler. It's part of the novel description, so don't worry about it, folks, if you're listening at home. The novel starts out with the main character. He's a combat medic, and he gets into like this bad battle scenario where he becomes quadriplegic, and his buddy who works at this video game company offers him the opportunity to essentially upload into the game as a character. And through like the intro character creation scene, which is AI controlled, and it's supposed to help you like choose your particular class depending on the questions you answer, which was also really, really cool. Reminding me of some other stuff I saw in other novels and series. Like, it was a cool poll. It basically gives someone an opportunity to choose a very unique class based upon the questions that he answered. That's the ritualist. And this is supposed to be a hidden class, so other people aren't supposed to know about it, because I guess there's a bad impression of it culturally within the game world. So it's he other people read it as healer, and he gets some healer abilities. But the ritualist class has the opportunity to basically create magical rituals that have varying effects, but they're also not super fast combat magic. So it's more along the lines of like, oh, you have to take time to prepare and get things correct and get special materials, and that takes time and effort and money. But the end result of these rituals can be super, super amazing and powerful if the main character can never figure how that all works, because it's not explained to him, and nothing in this world basically is. The characters have to learn everything the hard way, including like what class possibilities and specializations and jobs and professions are out there, and crafting and all the cool stuff if they want to do that. But it's all very much an opportunity to explore and experience and to learn on your own. And I love that about this game. It felt very open, and nothing was really handed to characters. Now, Dave Wilmarth in the chat room says hi. He says, might have been better if it was your average Ramon, though, instead of your average Joe. So, there you go.
I do like that. Yep. So actually, the name of the character was chosen. It's I got permission from a friend's dad. So my friend Joe, a little over a year ago, passed away, and so this is in memory of my friend Joe. So that's how we picked the name on this one.
So much
as I would love my main character to be Ramon, of course.
No, it's like, I think some other authors have like popped up Ramon as a villain occasionally, and I'm like, he gave reviews on like food and stuff, but he was still a villain. So there you go. And a lot of us writers actually end up using each other's names or characters or like nods to each other, because we're kind of a closer knit community in the LitRPG community. So that happens like a ton.
Sure.
So that's a good portion of like what makes Joe, I think, special a little bit. Can you think of anything else that makes him unique and interesting for your character?
Yes. So the occultist profession, right? So we hadn't even touched on that yet. So just like many other games, there are professions, and that is anything from gathering herbs, like you could be a herbalist, you could be a blacksmith, miner, all these other things. They're kind of separated into gathering professions and professional professions. So like creation from those gathered materials or the gathering of the materials. So typically it is recommended to start with a gathering class, so that by the time you can get your second profession, you have gathered whatever you need. So the occultist profession is similar to a scholar, and but it's much more based on flights of fancy and more game lore. And so pretty much if a scholar were to look at an occultist, they would say, "You're a quack, get out of my library. You're talking about dragons and fairies popping up here. Get out. This is science. Go away." So it's kind of touched on in the book. You'll see more of it in this one, and it's hard. It's really hard to give you a really good look into it because it's a really fun story, but it's really hard to say things without spoiling the whole story.
It's fine. I think people have enough information that they kind of get a grasp on what the job is, even just by the name. It's pretty. It's a good explanation. But I just want to emphasize, like, there's a huge amount of depth in this particular novel, folks. I mean, if you want something that has like multiple classes and professions and like all these skill trees and all these class trees, and eventually gets really, really like full, and like that's one of the things I love about you and your writing and your work is that I get all the great RPG stuff that I really love. Like, I'm the kind of guy who spent his teenage years reading Dungeons and Dragons manuals because I love just like reading about the classes and like the skill sets and like what the modifiers were and all that kind of cool stuff, and just like learning about reading in an actual story where you kind of get that same kind of vibe, like, oh, half of this guy's time can be spent like just researching and like looking at all these different possibilities about, oh, what he can do with his class and what all the other classes are possible in this particular world. This is definitely a little more something that feels slightly more familiar, I think, to a lot of people than the Divine Dungeons, because the Divine Dungeons series, while very cool, definitely took a different approach to advancement. In that series, it was, I forget if there's a particular name, but it was like Chi and Cultivate. That was a Cultivation. Thank you. Yep. Cultivation. And so that's something that's just like slightly different than like the traditional, more familiar like levels and classes and profession thing.
Sure.
So yeah, this one was, like I said, I enjoyed it a lot. Like I liked this. You know how I know I really liked the novel. I was reading it and I forgot that I was supposed to be reviewing it. I forgot that I was supposed to be taking notes, and it's like 15% before I remembered. Oh, it's right. I had to take notes on this thing. I was just enjoying myself so much that I just
compliment I could give you right there.
But I just relaxed and was like, oh, this is cool.
You know? Perfect. And that's exactly what I want. You know, I want you to get to the end of the book and say, wait, where's the rest of it?
Yeah, and it was fun. Like I said, this one also is, I'll say it's a little more slice of life than I think the Divine Dungeon series. Like the Divine Dungeon series was, like, there was kind of an arc for each story, and you knew that there was a big point sometimes, and there's always like this huge battle at the end. And this one was a little more slice of life. It was like, oh, he's there full time, so he's not going anywhere. And so it's kind of a way of exploring the world. Like, you leave hints in the novel that there are some bigger things happening, which we won't spoil because that's a big plot point. Right. But it's this one is definitely more of like, oh, daily adventures, go adventure sometimes, go craft sometimes, go research sometimes, go look at some of the things, go on these quests, the kind of a variety of like interesting possibilities. And as the novel goes on, those quests kind of build up into a chain where you realize, and it's finally revealed, oh, this is the big mechanic and this is the big thing about the game, which we won't spoil, but it has some very interesting story potential for the entire series.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and that's kind of one of the things with writing an RPG is that most RPGs are fairly sandbox. You know, while there is an end game, there is, the final thing. You're not getting to that right away.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people might rush to the ending too fast. In my books, I really try to say, like, hey, you don't know what you're doing. Things are going to go bad for you. And quite literally, when I'm in combat, what I'll do is I'll be like, all right, so he's attacking and he's being attacked, roll a die, and he's hit. Okay. And you'll see that a couple of times where it just doesn't make sense that he just died out of nowhere. He's just like, boom, dead. And it's like
oh, someone got a crit.
Pretty much, just roll a die. Oh, man.
Okay. Yeah, and I've known authors who do that, like, I'm just going to tap that die a little bit so he doesn't quite die yet. And
well, it happens so frequently at the start that I had to find a way to make it stop.
Yeah, it's called Dungeon Master Prerogative. When your characters are just dying so much, like, it's okay, they can't see these rolls.
Right. Well, it was more. So kind of how I figure it is that with strength and constitution. So for every point of constitution above 10, which is the human normal, like you have 10 points of constitution, that's kind of fairly standard across the board, D&D, stuff like that.
Right.
Points of constitution, you're good. If you have more than that, you start gaining health, right? So like every point of constitution is like 10 health. So, you get someone that has 40 constitution and, they can take a pretty solid beating compared to your base 50 health. that's 2-3 hits otherwise, or one hit if they're lucky. So
yeah, and the Ritualist it's apparently a very squishy class. Like I actually really enjoyed the way that you did the physical descriptors and modifiers as he went from below average, which would be the 10 points, to being at average at least. Like there was literally a physical description change in the novel, whereas like below 10 Constitution, he looks skeleton-like. He looks very skinny. He looks very emaciated to everybody else. But once he hit like 10 points, he filled out a little more, like he would be normal, and not like he's not buff, but he's basically, he doesn't look like he's gonna drop over dead. And I like that about all the different character classes that you have in there, including some of the other like modifiers for people who aren't like intelligent based classes, like some of the fighters. They're not so bright in their words when they talk sometimes, and that would be an effect of their intelligence modifier. A couple notes from the chat room. It seems like Dave Wilmarth says, "Is there a male pole dancer named Dave or Chatfield? He's a very pretty man."
I think, well, I mean, they're a duo, aren't they? They have to kind of be on stage together. You can't just have one and not the other.
Coming to stage number 2, folks.
Sort of
Dave and Chatfield. Yeah.
Wilmarth and Chatfield.
Yeah, and Charles Longstaff in chat room says he loves the Divine Dungeon series. He can't wait to dig into this one. Lazarinth says 2 days away. Woo! So there you go.
As well. It is quite interesting to see the numbers on Amazon right now, because with the Divine Dungeon, people were like, I'm like, hey, there's a new Divine Dungeon book coming out, and people are like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited! Yeah, everyone's like, all right, quick, go pre-order. And now it's this is a new series, and everyone's like, maybe we test the waters.
Yeah, and also I think it's also is that did you remember to add this novel to your Amazon author page? Because I was looking at it, I'm like, I didn't see it there.
That's a good question.
I just saw the Divine Dungeon series, so they might not actually know that it's there or not.
That is a very good question. I will definitely check that at the end of this conversation.
Yeah, but you also, I also remember that the people who love like the Dungeon Master series, the Dungeon Core novels, aren't always gonna like something else that's different. Like
that's totally fine. And that's why I'm trying to kind of expand my writing that so I can reach more people. I think my writing style is fairly fun, it's enjoyable to me at least, and that's what I'm going for. And hopefully, the mechanics change a bit, but hopefully the quality of the story is what draws them in. So,
yeah, no, like I said, it's a fun, like I said, it's very slice of life, but there's also, there are hints at an arc, and that's cool. Like I said, it's just different kind of novels for different kind of people, and you're going to get some crossover, but you're also going to attract a lot of new people with this particular series. I found that to be the case, at least for me, at least, between Adventures in Terra, which is very, fantasy, LitRPG, and Project Alpha, which is a little more modern sci-fi, because you have stuff, that one right there, look at that. Well, that's the Adventures in Terra, but yeah, Project Alpha, like I said, it is, and some people dropped out from Project Alpha saying, oh, this doesn't really fulfill it for me, but let me know when you write the next Adventures in Terra book, and some people are like, oh, I really like this one more than Adventures in Terra because this hits this, whatever button it does for them. And I lost your mic. Let's see.
How about now?
Yep, there you go.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I hit the sound down button, so. Okay. That's really what I'm going for. Hopefully, like you said, there will be some crossover. Hopefully, people enjoy both types of stories. And kind of for me, like as much as I love long series, I love reading. I love the books. Every once in a while, you'll get to book 6, book 7, and you'll be like, "Good Lord, I am just done with this series."
Yeah.
What else do they got?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, and sometimes, PS Power is a good example of this. Like, I really like the books, really like their books. But the thing is, a lot of the times, what'll happen is, you'll finish one series, and you'll be like, okay, cool. All right, I want to read what else they have, and you'll hop over and you'll be like, this is, you changed the name. The rest of it is, it's
the same.
Pretty much the same. Like, show me something new. What else you got? Like, entice me.
No, yeah, this is a good way to like stretch your author muscles as well. Because I noticed this happens a lot, at least with like the guys that I talk to or who are like in the LitRPG community who aren't like authors who write 20 novels a year. It's like, after 2 or 3 novels in the same series, you kind of, even as a writer, like, I'm kind of getting tired of these characters. We're telling this same story. I want to do something new and different, which is, I mean, I did it. I mean, I hit Adventures in Herbert too. I'm like, I was having trouble writing book 3 because I was like, I just wasn't feeling as inspired and I needed a break. So I wrote something that is kind of different.
Sure.
It's still LitRPG, and it's a lot of the same cool things that I love about the genre, but it's set in a different time period. It's more modern. It's, you know, and I think this kind of feels the same thing for Few because, again, it starts out in the modern world. It's not the medieval cultivation dungeon novel, and this is essentially an MMO. VR. It's still very fantasy, so it's still in the medieval section, but it's very much more game-like. It's more RPG game than maybe like Wushu or Cultivation, and those are different ways of writing and describing. And I know you love the game mechanics. I know you love doing spreadsheets and Excel sheets full of stuff. So it must have been really fun for you, like, to create something new and fun.
Yeah, and I kind of wish I could put the entire Excel sheet into the book, but that would be bad. There's stats and just it goes crazy, man. You update one thing, the whole thing changes. So I had to be really, really careful.
Yeah.
Luckily, I had a couple beta readers that were going through, and they caught like one just egregious mistake. And then I had to go back through and recalculate everything just to make sure that I hadn't messed up the rest of the book. But luckily, I had only copied the table incorrectly once, and I still had the original table where I was keeping track of everything.
Yeah, that's always a good thing to do. Make backups as you go for character sheets and other things that you change, just so you can. Exactly. If you have to roll back, it's not like to the very beginning or you have to figure it out all over again.
Right. Sheet 1, chapter 1.
No, yeah, for real. I'm not kidding. I do the same thing. I have like a sheet for each book, so that those character sheets are separate and saved. And then as I go on, anytime I make a change to a skill or advancement or to somebody's levels or whatever, that gets a whole new copy from that exact same character sheet and just with the modification. So and it'll be titled for the chapter that happens in, just in case I change something in the story and somebody advances a skill or gets another whatever. It's more experience points because I need to pop up. Make more action, whatever, then I can change everything and it still makes sense, and I don't have to like start from scratch or like try to figure out from memory what was there,
or literally read through and add things up.
Oh, that sucks. That would absolutely suck. I've had to do this and be like, oh, I forgot to make this change at the beginning and it affects everything else. Go through and add up damage or experience points. Yeah,
it's pretty fun though. And I would say that I don't think I go too overboard with like system messages or pop-ups or notifications like that.
No.
Yeah. I have seen a few where it's, you know, like the whole book is just boom, table. And it's like, okay, page.
I'm always a huge fan of like not having tables in novels, just because it's kind of, I understand it's a hassle as an author to do it, but it's, for some readers, it's also very distracting. And just from like talking to beta readers, a lot of them prefer, and not everybody, of course, just to have it as text, like, oh, italicized it or bolded it, so you make it look a little bit different. But at the same time, it's just easier to kind of look through. And it also kind of forces you as an author to kind of decide, well, how much information do I really need here? Kind of get by with less. And especially that becomes an issue when you do an audiobook version of a novel, because it's a super big pain in the butt to both find a way to do it and also to listen to it as a reader, like just pages of like stats, like
HP +1, HP +2, -7, -6.
Yeah. And so like even then, like you have to make decisions as to what you're putting in. A few comments from chat. It sees Dave Wilmar says he has a constitution of +400. It really filled him out. So
good Lord, a constitution of +400. You would that'd be
that's
disgusting.
A 9. What is that? Like a 9,000 experience hit point ratio, I think.
Well, something like that.
Is it 5?
Actually, so every 50 it doubles.
Oh.
So yeah.
we're doing math in our heads on the airbook. Sorry.
Yeah. So like, you know, it starts at 10. 10 is the basic human average, and then at 50, you actually will then double your stats. You'll go from, you know, if you're 1.5 the human average, you jump to twice the human average. Oh, I thought
something I saw, like you do like percentage points. A very interesting one. I'm like, oh wait, that's like math. in there. And like
Yes.
not everybody's gonna like, okay. I was like, I like it. I'm a
Right.
kind of a math guy. I love
Yeah,
percentage
I mean
things.
it's fairly minimal
Yeah.
though. Like it gives you the explanation once, and then the rest of it is novel. Like you can sit back and relax, or you can sit there with your calculator as you go along and be like, yep, okay, cool, he's adding it correctly. Oh, that was a temporary bonus. He messed up.
Yep. Oh, and readers will do that too. They will check your math for you.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
And you know, it's great that people like the work enough that they want it to be to their standard, and I really appreciate that.
No, that's fine. And like I said, a lot of people in the community really do appreciate the numbers. It's one of those things. Like one as somebody who reviews novels, LitRPG novels especially, there's so many new authors who try to come in, or publishers who just don't realize that it's okay to give numbers. Right. They're so used to like writing their fantasy and sci-fi books, where it's like, oh, you can't show the behind the scenes stuff. And so when they try to write LitRPG, they still incorporate that same philosophy. And I'm like, this is technically a LitRPG. Like you're talking about mechanics like in your character's brain, but the fact that you're not showing them is going to make this less appealing to a majority of the community. Like there's still some people who like that stuff, but I think most of the LitRPG community really likes the numbers. They like the notifications because that's what they're used to seeing as actual gamers, and so that's how they're connecting to the story. And the fact that it's okay to do it in a genre makes them feel comfortable, makes them feel connected that they're playing their favorite video game or something that's really cool.
But they don't have to spend 300 hours on it.
That's right. They don't. They can just like hang out for a thing and put it down and pick it back up or listen to it as an audiobook. And those are all really fun ways to do it. A couple more chat.
Before we get to that in a second
Sure.
here, just so you know, I will be having the same reader for the audiobook, so it'll be Vikas Adams. I'm pretty sure I said that correctly. So it's should stay consistent. So that's pretty good.
That's good. I use the same narrator for all my stuff too. And like it's just easier.
Okay, comments. Sorry.
Yeah, no
interrupt you.
comments from the chat room. No problem. Let's see. Dave Wilmar says, "Yeah, burnout. He was tempted to drop a meteor and smush everybody," referring to like author burnout for writing the same series so many times. He's another author who did the same thing. He wrote 3 books in the Greystone Chronicles, and now he's writing something different because after that third one, it's like my brain hurts.
And you know the great thing about that is that you can start writing on something else, and like but this I'm going through. I'm like, oh man, you know what? I can really think of a great mechanic that I can use in the next Divine Dungeon book, And I'm like, okay, I'll write that down real quick, and then I'll go back to writing my story.
Yeah.
And it happens pretty frequently, man. I have like a solid chunk of information ready to go for the next book.
Yeah, and that's just a matter of like
both of them.
just getting your brain out of that same rut headspace. Like when you like take a break, when you do some consumption of like other materials, or you just start writing something different, like your brain just doesn't burn out anymore because you're doing something different and new, and it's fun, and it becomes like very creative again. And just make sure you write down all those ideas because they're all very useful and valid. A couple more notes from chat. Let's see. We have Mr. Sergeant Blade. He says he can't wait for the next book. He arrived. He wants to know if you'd already estimated for the next Divine Dungeon book.
I am trying for this year. So how it's going to work is that my plan. My plan is to get out the second book in the Completionist Chronicles, and then but that's I've been writing on that. I haven't stopped because the next book is coming out. That just means as in editing, that means I'm writing the next book. So my plan is to do the second Completionist Chronicles and then the 4th Divine Dungeon series in the Divine Dungeon series. From there, it's kind of up in the air, but I'm really hoping to have out a total of 4 books this year. That's my goal.
Yeah.
So that's the Completionist or the Ritualist. Book 2, Divine Dungeon, and then one more. I could technically get away with being like, oh yeah, it was Calamity. Calamity's out, but I'm going to try for a solid 4.
Yeah, no, that's really fine. No, I'm kind of on the same schedule as you. Last year I put out, I think 2 technically, and so we'll hopefully double it this year, and we'll just be more productive since I'm a full-time writer now. I know you have some extra time right now at home ish, so.
Baby sleeps a lot if you feed her enough,
Yeah, just like take the food. I have to write.
But another thing is my editor just had a baby, so we'll see how that impacts his. Well, his wife had a baby. We'll see how that impacts his time. Hopefully, not too bad. So.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Let's see some of the questions from chat. It says Ian Mitchell says, "Nice shout out to Dakota for being brilliant. He can't wait for your next book." Mr. Sergeant Blade says he must agree with that. As a former gamer, he got fully immersed into the books, feeling as if he was playing an epic MMORPG. And going back to our comments about like, oh, showing the notifications, showing those numbers, showing those stats and character sheets, it's okay. That's what gamers are relating to. And so hiding them is only kind of to your detriment.
Sure. To a point. There's a fine balance.
Yeah, there is a balance to everything. Sure. It can't just be stats and stuff, but like it's okay to show that stuff. I think that's what I like about our genre is that we're giving permission to authors and gamers to like, oh, that's how they think in terms of games sometimes. Like, oh, what was that attack roll? Why is that damage that particular number? What's the math behind it? Or, something like that. Let's see. Dave Wilmer asks, when are you going to do the Badass Baby Soccer series?
Yeah, nope. I don't even know how to make a joke about that. I have thought about doing children's books, but I think they'd all be terrifying. So,
like the dungeon core who eats adventurers.
Yeah, pretty much. Like go to sleep or get eaten or something like that. I'm not sure.
Hey, there's the novel on that, and it's there's a whole
actually that's
series.
In the book.
Yeah.
Careful where you fall asleep, sort of thing.
Oh, I could see that as a children's like picture book, like little baby fall asleep in the dungeon. Aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
There's a whole. I can see the pictures in my brain.
I can see the title of the book. Be careful where you fall asleep. Boom, right there.
Look at us giving away stories ideas.
Yeah, 6-part series.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, let's see. So I think those are most of the comments. A lot of people are just saying thanks, hello, thanks for doing such good work. Keep up the good writing.
Oh, thank you guys.
All kinds of great stuff like that. I noticed you do have a little bit more time right now because you recently had a baby, and so you're on paternity leave. Have you been doing anything other than writing with your time? Like, have you ever read anything interesting recently?
Oh yeah, I've read all sorts of stuff. I'm actually kind of backlogged right now because I'm working with a whole bunch of different authors to try and do some cross promotions, but also not overwhelm my page with other people's books, especially with hopefully keeping a schedule is harder. But I've been trying to catch up on all the books. I know Blaze's new one came out. I still have to read that. Aileron's came out. I did make it through that one just because it was out a little earlier than Blaze's. I'll get to his new one. And there's always little things, Easter eggs in my books that I'm trying to do about these other books that I'm reading. But yeah, man, it's crazy. If I tried to list off all the authors of the books, like it would take a while because it's really fun. It's so fun to hop online and be like, hey, there's this author doing this, and then I'll try and reach out to them. They'll talk to me. Like Christopher Keane is another one that I promoted recently. It's so many great books out there. It's really hard to just say one or two. So
yeah, and all the authors you promote are things that you've read and enjoyed.
Yes. I try not to be like, oh yeah, I'll promote your book, random stranger. Why not? But every once in a while, I'm sure you'll notice this a lot too. Is that when you're writing, if you're even slightly successful, which I like to think that people like my work. People like to ask questions, which is totally great. I love helping other people. A big thing for me is if something is worth doing, it's worth doing for other people. It's worth helping other people to do well at. So I love doing that. The only thing is that I just don't have time for the surplus of people. I can't devote enough time to everyone to do justice to their work. Everyone that is trying to do this are like, hey man, here's a portion of my book. Can you read this? I'm like, oh yeah, I can read like a chapter. No, they send me like the first arc. It's like, okay, that's cool. I will read this. I will get to it eventually. But on the plus side, I haven't had to buy anything from Amazon in a while, so.
Well, no, that's cool. And I'm with you on the same page. It's like people are always asking me to read their stuff. Is this LitRPG? Do a consultation to see like are their game mechanics good enough? And I'm like, I try to be as selfless as possible, but at the same time, like I have to write and I have to read a lot of stuff.
Yep. Writing is your full-time job, and that's what you had to do. So, helping other people while it's awesome does sometimes have to take a back burner.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not a big cross-promoting kind of guy. I think I do enough promotion with the podcast that I'm like, true. I don't need to do stuff in my actual novels, it's okay.
Right. Totally.
It's just one of those things. Like if I start promoting one person, then it's like, oh, then everybody else gets mad and jealous. I never wanted the podcast to be about like, oh, here's a commercial for this guy who paid me money or who agreed to like also talk about my thing on his book novel. Like, no, it's just I try to treat everybody equally, including like my own stuff.
I'm really surprised you don't have ads yet. Just saying, you know, like
I could have. Like I've seen some like business models where like, oh, you pay $60, you know, get an ad on the podcast, it'll be there forever. And I'm like, that's great. I'm like, but to me, it's like people support the podcast in different ways so that we're essentially self-funded at this point. So we don't really need the money for it. And so I'd rather keep it as equal as possible. I'd rather somebody come into the show know, oh, he doesn't have a special interest in this particular series, in the particular genre because he wants to make ad money. And that's just a personal point of view. I try to be as very balanced. Is that very smart. Yeah, I really promote my own stuff.
Integrity.
Yeah, when it comes out, when it comes out like a regular book, I'll be like, hey, I wrote a thing. It comes out this day. Go check it out. And that's kind of it. I don't do reviews on my own stuff. I don't really talk about unless it's like, oh, I did this well, great, and that's kind of it. But I talk about everybody else's stuff a lot more, and I think that's gives the show, I guess you said, integrity. Like people know that it's trying to be fair.
Right. Yeah, and I think you do a good job at it. So.
Yeah. Lazarinth in the chat room says, "Oh, his cover's blown." He said, "Oh, a good shout out." Woohoo! And then he says, "Oh no, my cover's blown." So is that Christopher Kinney? I guess.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think it's Keen.
Keen?
Not.
Yeah.
I guess I haven't asked him.
Yeah, I've read most of his stuff that he's written, and I'm like, okay, I know that guy.
It's good stuff. Yeah. My lovely business manager has told me that it is Keen. So.
Yeah, I've never talked to him in real life yet. But I'm like, yeah, good stuff.
Friendly guy. Yeah. Very nice guy.
Okay. So there we go. Good stuff from the chat room. They're all just laughing at each other now. They're just talking to each other at this point in chat room. So we have some great stuff. Your novel comes out on March the 15th. And I'm curious, like, was there anything doing this novel that you found was interesting and challenging compared to the Divine Dungeon series?
Oh, yeah. So skill descriptions. I really thought it would be easier than it is. You know, like how to make a fair and balanced character while still letting them be the main character. You know, because anyone can be like, oh, he found the legendary sword of awesomeness, Zelda +2. You know, like wait, and you know, you can just munchkin your character, I guess is a good way to put it. And I'm trying to avoid that. I'm trying to keep it realistic. So, like I said, one of the ways that I do that is I literally have a die that I roll, and it's very possible that at a very inopportune time, my character is going to die, or he's going to take significant damage, or someone else in his party is going to die. And, you know, so it's like, okay, I'm doing this. Oh, crap. All right. Okay. And seriously, that's how I feel. It's like, oh, crap. Like I do that. I'm like, oh, you know, that makes sense. Like if I'm feeling upset about this, someone else is going to hop in with me, you know, like they're going to get on the anger wagon with me.
They're invested.
Right. So keeping track of everything is definitely more interesting because, you know, with the Divine Dungeon, I have a set of runes. I have, you know, the names of people, and I have their rankings. And basically, if they have a decent cultivation method, so like, you know, below average all the way up to just amazing. And in this, it's, you know, they have their main stats, you know, strength, charisma, wisdom, intelligence, perception, agility, you know, all this other stuff. And they have skills that they get based on how high those stat gets. And then they have skills that they get for leveling up. And then they have stuff that they can find and stuff that they can make. And then it's like, okay, what equipment does he have? Which of these are temporary bonuses? Like, all right, his charisma is below a normal human level. How are people going to treat him?
Right.
Like, all right, your charisma's at 8 right now. Oh, okay.
You're talking to her or us?
Like, my dog is.
Oh, I thought you like your wife. I'm like, her charisma is definitely not an 8. It's at least a 15. I've met her.
Oh yeah, she's gorgeous.
Yeah.
So this is Patton. Let's see. Yeah. So it's just like I said, keeping track of everything, making things snarky without being mean. You know, just trying to have fun with it it's very interesting because it's a cross between having a lot of fun and keeping a spreadsheet. So anyone who's played D&D will kind of know how that goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's definitely more like of that kind of variable stuff in this novel than there is because in a lot of ways, the Divine Gentry is a little more loose on the mechanics. Like you can, if you know someone's cultivation level, you can kind of guesstimate like where their damage is going to be. And also in that series, they don't get resurrected. They don't come back from death.
Exactly.
And so it's a lot harder to have them die after a bad roll. And here, it's totally okay for your characters to die in this series because they respawn.
I wouldn't say it's totally okay because it is a pretty hefty penalty.
But it's not permadeath.
Right. So I can kind of give this away because a lot of people have asked. They said, how do you keep an edge of I really, really don't want to die in the game? So how do you keep an edge to the game? So in this, you can think of, all right, a rabbit will give you like 3 to 4 experience. And here's the thing. No matter what your level is, you're going to get experience for that kill, right? So the experience stays the same. You could literally go out and kill 100,000 wolves and get to level 20 or something like that. But you really don't want to.
Yeah, no, that's a grind.
Right. Because so a wolf gives you, I think it's 12 experience. And to get to the next level is the total experience of the previous level times your current level times 1,000. Mm-hmm. So, you have to get to level 1, right? You're at level 1. To get to level 2 is 1,000 experience because it's 1,000 plus 0. To get to level 2 to get to level 3 is 1,000 plus 2,000, so 3,000.
Right.
And it just goes up like that. So, getting to level 10 is something like, I don't know, 100,000 experience or 80,000. I'm not really sure off the top of my head. I have the sheet somewhere though. Don't worry. No.
I think it is something similar with my novel. Like it gets much harder as you go up in level to get the next level.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so then stats become more important than level over time, which is why later on you really can't judge someone by their level because a level 10 could probably just wreck a level 15 if the level 15 has purchased their way to get up to level 15.
Right, and that's totally a possibility in this particular world because it feels much more of a full world where like things like equipment matters. Like the bonus stats on that equipment really do matter because it might be like a 10% increase in your stats or whatever, or in your health or whatever it is from like that special ability to like not have you die or whatever is there. I do have to say though that your wife is in chat and she's answering a bunch of questions and. Yeah, it's super hilarious at this point. She's like, someone was like, "Hey, I love that Danielle's in the chat and she's faster to answer the questions than Dakota." And she's like, "Yeah, me too."
Chat, so.
yeah. It's like somebody was like, "Hey, tell your wife / baby mama hello." And
yep, lovely wife.
Yeah, and so she popped in to try to say hello, and I was like, "Uh-oh, she's monitoring us."
Yes,
and the stuff
that's
in
how
chat
I feel
room.
all the time.
So there's all kinds of fun stuff. One of the questions from chat room was Mr. Sergeant Blade, who has a picture of a kitten, so I keep thinking of his Mr. Sergeant Kitten in my head when I see the picture. He asked, the massive plot twist at the end of the newest Divine Dungeon book, was it all planner, or did you just come up with at the moment of writing?
No, that was planned since the book started, actually, since the whole series started. I was actually, when I was first writing Dungeon Born, I really didn't think people were going to read it, so I kind of pushed it off. That was actually how the first one was going to end. And then I got to the end and said, it just doesn't make sense to do it here. Right. So, and me, I'm all about logic. So even though I live in a fantasy world,
No. Your job kind of says, oh yeah, you're logic based.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I like the logic of things. And when I get to a place, I'm like, wait a second, I don't want to just toss it in there and have that be the end. Like, that just doesn't make sense. Like, let's push that out a little bit. And then, the response was so great for Dungeon Born that I wrote Dungeon Madness, and then I was like, okay, we'll do it here. No, it doesn't make sense there either. Right. But in the third one, there we go. Actually, I have a whole huge list of plot points that I try to hit. And, this part of how I write is I make a big indented, do this and this, do this, do this, do this. And I try to incorporate each of them, but a lot of times it'll be like, all right, do this, and then it'll actually go, do this,
yeah,
and then maybe come back there and then it's crazy, but it's great. You know,
No,
it's
yeah,
super
dude.
fun.
Absolutely. I kind of did the same. I started to do the same thing where like I try to outline a little bit more like, oh, these are the things I want to happen. And sometimes they don't fit in the right order that I originally thought they were as I'm writing the story. And so I'm like, oh, well, maybe I can move this down here, or maybe I have to eliminate it entirely and put it in a different book. But I do think it's interesting that you originally planned for one book, it sounds like, and then when it was successful, you're like, oh, I have more stories. I can write this out more. And it became 2 and then 3 and now an entirely different series.
Yeah. Well, and again, Divine Dungeon is continuing for all the people out there that are really, really concerned and have been pinging my page. It is continuing. I just don't know when. So I'm not going to George R. R. Martin it, though. You won't see this 10 years down the road. This should be fairly faster than that. Cool.
So you actually do you have an end point for the Divine Dungeon series? I mean,
I do.
Okay.
Yep. That was also planned since the start, but I didn't want to make a huge monolithic single book, so I kind of had to split it up a little bit.
Right now, I guess I'll mention here that sounds a great point. The Divine Dungeon series actually ties into the Ritualist series. If you guys read that particular novel in a couple of days when it comes out, go pre-order it now, of course. You actually see a nod to Cal. So see if you can figure out where Cal comes in to this particular series, and so you might actually get some connection between the two at all.
And at this point, it's more Easter egg than it is like lore. You know?
Yeah, because you haven't finished. You haven't written the connecting portion of those two things yet. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, got a couple questions from chat.
Someone is saying that your microphone is bad. I'm not hearing it, so.
I know it's sometimes the Google thing. I'll have a separate recording of this. Like I let it record on my computer just in case for these reasons. So as long as you hear it and I can record it,
sure.
That's the important part. So folks in chat, I apologize if I cut out a little bit here and there, but that's why I do double recordings just in case, because it's happened before. Ask D. Wolfen. He was like one of the very first author interviews I did, and like when I listened to it later on YouTube, I was like, uh-oh. And I think I lost your mic again.
No, I was just messing you.
Oh, okay. See, look at you messing with me, man.
Just sitting over here pretending to talk.
Dave Woolmarth in the chat room asked, what would you rather face, 100,000 wolves or one bear with a laser on its head?
I mean, the bear, obviously. I mean, bear doesn't know how to operate a laser. Come on now.
It's just, he's like, wow, it's a pretty light. You'd hope it worked like it was a cat. Like he's just like sending himself around in circles.
Well, plus, I mean, after I killed 100,000 wolves, that's going to be a huge mess to clean up, man. Like, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, see, there you go. So I kind of made the same question. That was one of those questions that that another friend of mine, Charles Dean, does. He started his own podcast called Drinking with Charles. And so we asked a bunch of authors on there various times. I think he said like Blaise Corbin, Travis Bagwell, a bunch of other folks, including Michael Chatfield, Don Chapman, and basically
we're
drinking.
We're going to be talking either later this week or later next week, actually, playing Vermintide.
Oh, so yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Look at you just hopping on all the podcasts. But yeah, that's one of the questions he asks on a regular basis.
Actually, I just wanted someone to play Vermintide with, and it turns out that he's doing a podcast as well. So.
Yeah, he kind of just, he's kind of been different places. Like he's testing things out. So I think a couple times he's done just like gaming at the same time with Charles while he drinks. So it's been a fun experience, I think, for him exploring things. I've never played Vermintide. What's that about?
Vermintide 2 is the one that's just came out. It's a Warhammer fantasy sort of game. 5 different characters. You're basically trying to battle through hordes of creatures to get to the end point. So it's very interesting. It took me 4 tries to get through one level because anyway, I was it's very interesting because you're like, oh, this is a rookie level, this is the easiest one, great, okay, go through, whole party just wipes. Oh, all right.
Now this is a cooperative multiplayer game, or is it like
yes. Okay. 4 player, I think, maybe 5, I'm not really sure. I think it's just 4. Again, I'm still waiting on finding people to play, so I think Charles is going to be the first person that I know that is actually going to play with me. So otherwise, it's just kind of a pug group,
right?
Or pug, yeah, pickup group. Sorry.
Yeah, there you go. So look at us defining gamer terms for people. See, we're educational folks as well as entertaining.
Just so you know, friends.
Yeah. The more you know. Dun, 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 yeah.
Nice.
Same joke.
That was good timing. Yeah. Great. Yeah. Let's see. Any other questions right away for the book? Or
No, I think that's about it for the book. Anybody else in chat room have any questions? Feel free to ask right now. Otherwise, we're probably going to wrap this up. A lot of good comments, but again, it is kind of last minute.
Sure.
We didn't have this plan weeks and weeks in advance. It was like, hey, want to chat? Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, we like to sneak in here.
Yeah, and it kind of works out for your book schedule because your book comes out again in just a couple days as of this recording.
Right before my birthday. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it really?
Yeah, so mine is the 19th. Danielle's is the 18th. So it's going to be a good weekend.
Very nice, man. Congratulations. Happy birthday to both of you.
Well, it's also St. Patty's Day. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Is that a big thing where you guys are at?
Well, we live 80 miles from the next nearest point of civilization. So, yeah. There's nowhere else to go, so everyone just kind of congregates.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, I get it. Well, there you go. See, there you go. I don't know if it's as big here. I went to an Irish festival this past weekend where I live, and it was just like, vendors, lots of beers, people stumbling around drunk in green costumes.
Yep, that one. That's the one. That's what we'll see here.
Yeah, see, there you go. Same stuff, different states. It's all cool.
Hey.
So there you go. It looks like we have a couple people. Nope, that's kind of it. Yeah, I'll have author interviewed someone else on the 17th. He's saying hello, so we'll talk about that later, though. Great. But I guess that's kind of it. Thank you, everybody, for joining, for hanging out with us. We'll have all the links to the show notes for all of Dakota stuff, in the Ritualist, the Divine Gin series, everything, his author page, Facebook stuff. It'll all be there, so go make sure to check out his stuff. Go support him on Patreon, on his Facebook page, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere he goes. Was there anything else you wanted to say before we say goodbye?
Just once again, thank you to everyone out there. I know there's lots of fans out there, lots of people that read books, but I still had to say that I think mine are the best. So thank you all for that.
Oh, thanks a lot. And just last comment, Dave Wilmer says he predicts another level human coming soon. Maybe from all that drinking. I don't know. See, there you go.
We'll see how we do with one.
Yeah. Let's get this one down first.
Yeah.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks a lot for hanging out. Remember to go read some LitRPG. Goodbye, everybody.